Most people think success is about talent. They're wrong. Success is about what happens when life hits you harder than expected, when the pressure rises, when the fear gets louder, when the motivation disappears. That's where most people break. They quit. They complain. They wait for a better moment. But not you. This audiobook is about building a mind that doesn't crack under pressure, doesn't collapse under stress, and doesn't surrender when things get difficult. Because the strongest people aren't the ones who never struggle. They're the ones who refuse to stop. Today, you will learn how to become one of them. Chapter 1. Stop waiting for motivation. Most people are waiting to feel motivated, waiting to feel confident, waiting to feel ready. And while they wait, life keeps moving forward. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. Months become years. The opportunity they wanted passes by. The goal they dreamed about stays unfinished. The life they imagined remains a fantasy. Why? Because they are waiting for a feeling before they take action. That feeling is called motivation, and motivation is unreliable. Some days you wake up energized. Some days you don't. Some days you feel powerful. Some days you feel weak. If your success depends on how you feel, your success will always be inconsistent. That's the key. Most successful people don't rely on motivation. They rely on discipline. Think about the strongest people you know. They don't always feel like working. They don't always feel like exercising. They don't always feel like doing difficult things. They simply do them. Because they understand a truth that most people ignore. Action comes first. Motivation comes second. Most people think it's the opposite. They think they need motivation before they begin. Wrong. You begin first. Then momentum appears. Then confidence grows. Then motivation follows. A person who starts running doesn't suddenly become motivated before the first step. The motivation appears after the action begins. That's why waiting is dangerous. The longer you wait, the weaker your habits become. The longer you delay, the easier it becomes to delay again. You have a choice. You can wait for motivation, or you can become the type of person who acts regardless of how they feel. Every day you make that choice. Every day you either strengthen discipline or strengthen excuses. And here's something important. Excuses feel comfortable in the moment, but they become painful over time. Discipline feels painful in the moment, but it creates freedom over time. That's the difference. The people who build powerful lives are not special. They simply refuse to negotiate with their goals. They decide what must be done, then they do it, whether they feel like it or not. It's not about motivation, it's about discipline. It's not about emotion, it's about execution. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need permission. You don't need another motivational video. You need action. Right now. Because every small action sends a message to your brain. It says, I keep my promises. And every time you keep a promise to yourself, your confidence grows. Your mind becomes stronger. Your identity changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone who talks. You start seeing yourself as someone who acts. That's how an unbreakable mind is built. Not through giant moments, not through dramatic breakthroughs, but through small, daily actions repeated over and over again. Remember this: you don't need motivation, you need movement. You don't need inspiration, you need discipline. And the moment you stop waiting and start acting, you begin becoming the person you were meant to be. Because most people wait. You won't. That's the key. Now that you've learned why motivation cannot be trusted, it's time to understand what truly tests a person's character. Because sooner or later, pressure arrives, and pressure reveals everything. Chapter 2. Pressure reveals who you are. Pressure changes everything. When life is easy, almost anyone can look confident. Almost anyone can stay positive. Almost anyone can talk about discipline, courage, and determination. But when pressure arrives, the truth is exposed. A strong mind understands the difference between emotion and reality. Instead of reacting immediately, it pauses, it observes, it thinks, then it acts. Most mistakes happen when emotions take control. A person says something they regret. A person makes a bad decision. A person gives up too soon, all because they reacted instead of responding. You don't need to react. You need to think. You need to stay calm. That doesn't happen automatically. It requires practice. Every day, small frustrations give you an opportunity to train. Traffic, delays, mistakes, criticism, unexpected problems. These are not just annoyances. They are training sessions. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you strengthen your mind. Every time you refuse to overreact, you build emotional control. And emotional control creates mental toughness. Most people want strength. Very few people want the training required to develop it. But you are different. You are building a mind that doesn't break. That means you must learn to stay calm when others panic. You must learn to think when others react. You must learn to focus when others lose control. Because pressure will always exist. Challenges will always exist. Difficult people will always exist. The question is not whether those things will appear. The question is how you will respond when they do. You have a choice. Always. A calm mind says, "What can I do right now?" A weak mind says, "Why is this happening to me?" One question creates progress. The other creates suffering. Choose wisely. The next time life becomes difficult, remember this. Slow down. Breathe. Focus on facts, not fears. Focus on solutions, not problems. Focus on actions, not emotions. That's how strong people operate. That's how leaders operate. That's how an unbreakable mind operates. Because calmness is not weakness. Calmness is control. And control is power. The person who controls their emotions controls their actions. The person who controls their actions controls their future. That's the key. Stay calm, stay clear, stay focused. And no matter what happens around you, refuse to let chaos happen inside you. Because a mind that stays calm under pressure becomes incredibly difficult to break. You learned to stop waiting for motivation. You learned to face pressure. You learned to stay calm. Now it's time to build the trait that turns these lessons into a permanent lifestyle. And suddenly, a small problem
becomes a massive crisis inside their mind. That's why staying calm is a superpower. Not because it removes problems, but because it allows you to handle them effectively. Remember this: your emotions are real, but they are not always accurate. Just because you feel afraid doesn't mean you're in danger. Just because you feel overwhelmed doesn't mean you can't handle the situation. Just because you feel like quitting doesn't mean you should quit. Feelings come and go. Discipline remains. That's the key. Chapter 4. Make discipline your identity. Most people see discipline as something they do. That's why they fail. They treat discipline like a temporary activity, something they use when they feel motivated, something they practice for a few days, something they abandon when life becomes difficult. But truly strong people see discipline differently. They don't see it as an action. They see it as an identity. That's the key. When discipline becomes part of who you are, everything changes. You stop asking yourself if you should do the work. You simply do it. You stop debating with yourself. You stop negotiating. You stop looking for excuses, because disciplined action becomes automatic. Think about it. A person who identifies as a runner doesn't constantly ask whether they should run. They run. A person who identifies as a reader doesn't need motivation to read. They read. A person who identifies as disciplined doesn't need inspiration to act. They act. Identity drives behavior. That's why most people struggle. They focus only on goals. I want to lose weight. I want to make more money. I want to become successful. Those goals are fine, but goals alone are not enough. Because goals focus on what you want. Identity focuses on who you become. And who you become is far more important. You have a choice. You can chase outcomes, or you can build an identity that naturally produces those outcomes. The second path is stronger. The second path lasts longer. The second path creates real transformation. Every action you take is a vote for the person you are becoming. Every workout is a vote. Every book you read is a vote. Every promise you keep is a vote. Every excuse you reject is a vote. The question is simple. Who are you voting to become? Because whether you realize it or not, you're building an identity every single day. The problem is that many people build the wrong one. Every time they quit, they strengthen the identity of a quitter. Every time they procrastinate, they strengthen the identity of a procrastinator. Every time they avoid responsibility, they strengthen the identity of someone who avoids challenges. And over time, those actions become habits. Those habits become beliefs. Those beliefs become identity. That's dangerous. Because once you believe something about yourself, you start acting accordingly. If you believe you're lazy, you'll act lazy. If you believe you're weak, you'll act weak. If you believe you're disciplined, you'll act disciplined. That's why identity matters so much. Your mind always wants consistency. It wants your actions to match what you believe about yourself. So change the belief. Start telling yourself the truth. I am disciplined. I do hard things. I keep my promises. I finish what I start. then prove it with action. Not once, not twice, repeatedly, because identity is not built through words. Identity is built through evidence. Every time you act with discipline, you provide evidence. Every time you show up when you don't feel like it, you provide evidence. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you provide evidence. And eventually, your mind accepts the message. This is who I am. That's the key. Strong people don't rely on motivation. Strong people rely on identity. When life gets hard, they don't suddenly become disciplined. They already are disciplined. It's part of who they are. That's why they remain consistent. That's why they keep moving forward. That's why they become difficult to stop. You don't need their permission. You don't need approval. You don't need recognition. You need discipline. And more importantly, you need to become the type of person who values discipline. Every morning, ask yourself one question. What would a disciplined person do right now? Then do exactly that. Not tomorrow, today. Because the person you become is shaped by the actions you repeat. And if you repeat discipline long enough, it stops feeling like effort. It becomes identity. Remember this. Discipline is not what you do. Discipline is who you become. Read that again. Discipline is not what you do. Discipline is who you become. Once you understand that, everything changes. You stop chasing motivation. You stop making excuses. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You simply act again and again, day after day, because that's who you are. And when discipline becomes your identity, your mind becomes stronger than your emotions, stronger than your excuses, stronger than your circumstances. That's how an unbreakable mind is built. But there's still an obstacle that destroys countless people: comfort. The desire for an easy life, the addiction to convenience. And if you want true mental toughness, you must learn how to defeat it. Chapter 5. Stop running from discomfort. Most people spend their entire lives chasing comfort. Comfortable jobs, comfortable routines, comfortable decisions, comfortable excuses. And while they are busy protecting their comfort, they slowly destroy their potential. That's the key. Everything you want is usually hiding behind discomfort. Growth is uncomfortable. Learning is uncomfortable. Discipline is uncomfortable. Change is uncomfortable. Success is uncomfortable. Yet most people spend their lives trying to avoid exactly what would make them stronger. Think about the gym. When a muscle grows, it doesn't happen through comfort. It happens through resistance. It happens through strain. It happens through discomfort. Your mind works the same way. Mental strength is built through resistance, not comfort. Every challenge you avoid makes you weaker. Every challenge you face makes you stronger. You have a choice: run from discomfort or grow through it. Most people choose the first option. That's why they stay stuck. They avoid difficult conversations. They avoid hard work. They avoid responsibility. They avoid risk. And then they wonder why their life never changes. The answer is simple. You cannot grow while staying comfortable. Growth and comfort cannot exist in the same place for very long. Sooner or later, you must choose comfort or growth, comfort or progress, comfort or greatness. That's the reality. Many people want the rewards of success. Very few people want the discomfort required to earn it. They want confidence without challenge. They want results without effort. They want transformation without sacrifice. Life doesn't work that way. Everything valuable has a price, and that price is often discomfort. That's why mentally strong people think differently. When discomfort appears, they don't automatically run away. They lean into it. They understand that discomfort is often a signal that growth is nearby, a signal that improvement is possible, a signal that they are moving beyond their current limits. That's the key. Discomfort is not your enemy. Discomfort is your teacher. Every difficult situation has something to teach you. Patience, discipline, courage, resilience, focus. But you'll never learn those lessons if you keep running away. Imagine two people. The first person avoids everything difficult. The second person faces difficult things regularly. Who becomes stronger after 5 years? Who becomes more confident? Who develops more resilience? The answer is obvious. Confidence doesn't come from comfort. Confidence comes from proving to yourself that you can handle difficult things. Every challenge you overcome sends a message to your mind, I can do hard things. That message is powerful. Because once you truly believe it, fear loses much of its control over you. You stop seeing obstacles as threats. You start seeing them as opportunities. Opportunities to learn, opportunities to improve, opportunities to grow. You don't need their permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You need courage, not the absence of fear, the willingness to move despite fear. That's what courage really is. Most people think brave people don't feel afraid. Wrong. Brave people feel fear just like everyone else. The difference is that they act anyway. That's the key. The goal is not to eliminate discomfort. The goal is to come comfortable with discomfort, because life will never stop challenging you. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be risk. There will always be difficult moments. The stronger you become, the more responsibility you'll carry. The more responsibility you carry, the more challenges you'll face. So stop trying to create a perfectly comfortable life. Create a stronger version of yourself instead. A stronger mind, a stronger attitude, a stronger identity, because strength lasts longer than comfort. Comfort fades. Strength remains. The next time you feel discomfort, don't immediately retreat. Pause. Ask yourself a simple question. Is this discomfort hurting me or growing me? Many times the answer will be clear. The discomfort is helping you grow. Stay with it. Learn from it. Move through it. Because every time you face discomfort, instead of avoiding it, you become harder to break. You become more disciplined, more resilient, more capable. That's how mental toughness is developed. Not through easy days, through difficult ones. Remember this. Comfort weakens. Discomfort strengthens. Read it again. Comfort weakens. Discomfort strengthens. The people who understand this become unstoppable, because while everyone else is running from difficulty, they are growing through it. And growth always wins in the long run. You have learned to stop waiting for motivation. You have learned to face its pressure. You have learned to stay calm. You have learned to build discipline. And now you understand the power of discomfort. But mental toughness isn't built only through big challenges. It's also built through small daily victories. Chapter 6. Learn to win small battles. Most people are obsessed with big victories. They want the promotion, the business, the dream body, the financial freedom, the massive breakthrough. but they ignore the place where all big victories begin. The small battles, that's the key. Your life is not built by a few giant decisions. It is built by thousands of small ones. The alarm clock rings. Do you get up? You make a plan. Do you follow it? You promise yourself you'll do the work. Do you keep that promise? These moments seem small, but they aren't. Because every small battle shapes who you become. Most people lose the day before breakfast. They hit the snooze button. They delay their goals. They choose comfort over commitment. And they repeat the pattern again and again. Then they wonder why their confidence is low. The answer is simple. Confidence comes from keeping promises to yourself. Every small victory strengthens trust. Every broken promise weakens it. You have a choice every day, every hour, sometimes every minute. The choice isn't between success and failure. The choice is between discipline and excuses. One choice makes you stronger. The other makes you weaker. That's the key. Strong people don't become strong overnight. They become strong by winning small battles consistently. They make their bed. They finish their workout. They complete their tasks. They do what they said they would do, not because it's exciting, because it's necessary. Most people underestimate the power of consistency. They think success comes from doing something huge once. In reality, success usually comes from doing something small, hundreds of times. One workout won't change your body. One book won't change your mind. One productive day won't change your future. But hundreds of them will. That's how transformation works. Slowly, quietly, repeatedly. You don't need a dramatic breakthrough. You need daily victories. A small win today, another tomorrow, then another and another. Those victories begin to stack. Momentum begins to build. Your identity begins to change. You stop seeing yourself as someone who talks about goals. You become someone who achieves them. That's powerful, because success is not built on motivation. It's built on habits. And habits are created through repetition. Think of a bricklayer building a wall. One brick seems insignificant, but enough bricks create something strong. Your daily actions are those bricks. Every disciplined choice adds another brick. Every excuse removes one. The wall you're building is your future. What does your wall look like? Strong or unstable? Only your daily actions can answer that question. You don't need their permission. You don't need constant encouragement. You need consistency. That's the key. When you win small battles, something important happens. Your mind begins to trust you. You stop doubting yourself. You stop wondering if you'll follow through. You know you will, because you've proven it repeatedly. That's where real confidence comes from. Not from compliments, not from luck, not from positive thinking, from evidence. Evidence that you can rely on yourself. Evidence that you finish what you start. Evidence that you keep moving when things get difficult. And once you develop that kind of confidence, life changes. Challenges don't seem as intimidating. Goals don't seem as impossible. Obstacles don't seem as overwhelming. Because you've trained yourself to win one small battle at a time. Most people are waiting for a big moment to change their lives, but the truth is simpler. The big moment is happening right now. Every decision matters. Every action matters. Every small battle matters. Win enough of them, and your entire life changes. Lose enough of them, and your life stays exactly where it is. You have a choice. That's the key. Stop focusing only on the mountain. Focus on the next step. Stop worrying about the finish line. Focus on today's responsibility. Stop chasing perfection. Focus on progress. Because progress creates momentum. Momentum creates confidence. Confidence creates action. And action creates results. Remember this. Small victories create big victories. Read that again. Small victories create big victories. Never underestimate the power of doing simple things consistently, because consistency is what separates dreamers from achievers. It separates wishful thinking from real progress, and it separates weak minds from unbreakable ones. Every day gives you another opportunity to win. Take it, protect it, build upon it, because the person who masters small battles eventually masters bigger ones. But there is another battle that happens every single day, a battle inside your own mind, a battle between empowering thoughts and destructive thoughts. And if you don't learn to control that battle, everything else becomes harder. Chapter 7. Master the voice inside your head. There is a voice that follows you everywhere. It speaks when you wake up. It speaks when you face challenges. It speaks when you're about to take a risk. It speaks when you're about to quit. And whether you realize it or not, that voice is shaping your life. That's the key. The greatest battle you will ever fight is not against other people. It's not against circumstances. It's not against bad luck. It's against the voice inside your own head. Because that voice influences every decision you make. If the voice is weak, your actions become weak. If the voice is strong, your actions become strong. Most people never learn this. They allow negative thoughts to control them. They believe every doubt, every excuse, every criticism. And over time, those thoughts become beliefs. Those beliefs become habits. Those habits become reality. That's dangerous. Imagine someone who constantly tells themselves, "I'm not good enough. I always fail. I can't do this." Sooner or later, they'll start acting like those statements are true, not because they are true, because they believe them. That's why controlling your inner voice matters so much. Your mind is always listening. Every thought you repeat becomes stronger. Every belief you reinforce becomes more powerful. You have a choice. You can allow negative thoughts to dominate, or you can learn to challenge them. That's the key. A strong mind does not believe every thought it hears. It questions them. It examines them. It refuses to accept weakness without evidence. Think about it. How many times have you worried about something that never happened? How many times have you doubted yourself unnecessarily? How many opportunities have you missed because fear convinced you not to act? The voice inside your head has power, but only if you give it power. You are not your thoughts. You are the person who chooses which thoughts to follow. That distinction changes everything, because once you understand that, you stop becoming a victim of your own mind. You start becoming its leader. Most people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to a friend. They criticize themselves, attack themselves, doubt themselves constantly, and then they wonder why their confidence is low. The answer is obvious. You cannot build confidence while feeding yourself negativity every day. That's why mental toughness requires mental discipline. You must learn to monitor what you're telling yourself. When your mind says, "You can't do this," challenge it. When your mind says, "You're not ready," challenge it. When your mind says, you should quit. Challenge it. Ask yourself one question. Is this thought helping me or hurting me? If it's hurting you, stop feeding it. Strong people understand this principle. They don't pretend everything is perfect. They don't ignore reality. They simply refuse to make reality worse through negative thinking. That's the key. A strong inner voice doesn't say, "This will be easy." A strong inner voice says, "This will be difficult, but I can handle it." That's confidence, not believing you'll never struggle, believing you'll survive the struggle. There's a huge difference. You don't need their permission. You don't need everyone's approval. You don't need perfect certainty. You need belief in yourself, and belief is built through action. Every time you face fear, belief grows. Every time you overcome resistance, belief grows. Every time you keep moving despite doubt, belief grows. That's how confidence is created, not by thinking, by doing. Remember that. Your actions give your inner voice evidence. When you repeatedly do difficult things, your mind begins to trust you. The voice changes. It becomes stronger, more supportive, more resilient. Instead of saying, "I can't," it starts saying, "I've handled difficult things before." Instead of saying, "What if I fail?" it starts saying, "What if I succeed?" That's powerful. Because your life often follows the direction of your dominant thoughts. If your thoughts are focused on weakness, you'll act weak. If your thoughts are focused on growth, you'll act stronger. That's why mastering your inner voice is one of the most important skills you'll ever develop. Not because it removes challenges, but because it changes how you respond to them. The world will always have obstacles. The world will always have critics. The world will always have uncertainty. Don't become another obstacle in your own path. Become your own ally. Become your own coach. Become your own source of strength. That's the key. The voice inside your head should push you forward, not hold you back. Train it, strengthen it, control it, because the person who controls their thoughts gains control over their actions. And the person who controls their actions gains control over their future. Remember this: control the voice, control the life. Read it again. Control the voice, control the life. Master this lesson, and you'll become far more difficult to break. Because no challenge is more dangerous than a mind working against itself. You have learned to master motivation. You have learned to handle pressure. You have learned to stay calm. You have learned discipline. You have learned to embrace discomfort. You have learned to win small battles. And now you've learned how to control the voice inside your head. But there is another enemy that quietly destroys potential every day: excuses. Chapter 8. Become harder than your excuses. Every person has excuses. The successful have them. The unsuccessful have them. The rich have them. The poor have them. The confident have them. The insecure have them. The difference is simple. Successful people don't let excuses make their decisions. That's the key. An excuse is nothing more than a story that protects you from discomfort, a story that protects you from responsibility, a story that helps you avoid action. And the more excuses you accept, the weaker you become. Most people don't realize how dangerous excuses are, because excuses often sound reasonable. I'm too tired. I don't have enough time. I'll start next week. The conditions aren't right. Someone else has it easier. At first, these statements seem harmless, But repeated often enough, they become a prison built from your own thinking. And the worst part, the door is unlocked. You have a choice. You can continue believing your excuses, or you can start questioning them. That's the key. Every excuse should be challenged. Ask yourself, is this a real obstacle, or is it an excuse? Sometimes obstacles are real, but most excuses are simply fear, wearing a disguise, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of discomfort, fear of responsibility. The excuse hides the fear, but the fear remains. That's why excuses never solve anything. They only delay the problem. Think about someone who wants to get fit. Every day they say, "I'll start tomorrow." Tomorrow comes, the excuse returns. Weeks pass, months pass, years pass, nothing changed. The excuse protected them from temporary discomfort, but it created long-term regret. That's how excuses work. They provide short-term comfort and long-term pain. Discipline works differently. Discipline creates short-term discomfort and long-term freedom. That's the difference. Most people choose comfort. Strong people choose growth. That's why strong people take ownership. Ownership is powerful. Ownership means saying, my results are my responsibility. My choices matter. My actions create my future. Those statements create power. Excuses remove power. Because every excuse places control somewhere else. On circumstances, on luck, on other people, on the economy, on the past, on anything except yourself. And when you give away control, you give away power. That's the key. Responsibility creates power. Excuse destroy it. You don't need their permission. You don't need perfect circumstances. You don't need guarantees. You need ownership. The moment you stop blaming and start taking responsibility, everything changes. Because now you can improve. Now you can grow. Now you can act. A person who blames everything changes nothing. A person who takes responsibility can change everything. Think about the strongest people you know. Do they spend their time making excuses? No. They spend their time finding solutions. When problems appear, they ask, what can I do? Not, who can I blame? That's why they keep moving forward. That's why they keep growing. That's why they keep winning. You cannot control every situation, but you can control your response. And your response matters more than the situation itself. That's a truth many people never learn. Life isn't always fair. Bad things happen. Unexpected challenges appear. But excuses never make those challenges smaller. Action does. Responsibility does. Discipline does. That's why mentally tough people focus on what they can control, their attitude, their effort, their decisions, their habits, their mindset. Everything else is secondary, because energy spent on excuses is energy stolen from progress. Remember that. Every minute spent complaining is a minute not spent improving. Every excuse strengthens weakness. Every action strengthens confidence. You have a choice every single day. Feed excuses or feed discipline. One makes you weaker. The other makes you stronger. That's the key. The strongest people are not people with perfect lives. They are people who refuse to let excuses control them. They move despite fear. They act despite uncertainty. They keep going despite obstacles. Because they understand something powerful. Excuses never build anything. Action builds everything. Read that again. Excuses never build anything. Action builds everything. The future you want cannot be reached through excuses. It can only be reached through responsibility, through ownership, through disciplined action. So the next time an excuse appears, pause, question it, challenge it, and ask yourself, is this excuse helping me become stronger, or is it keeping me weak? Most of the time, you'll already know the answer. Choose strength, choose responsibility, choose action, because a mind that refuses excuses becomes incredibly difficult to break. And when you remove excuses from your life, something amazing happens. Every setback becomes a lesson. Every failure becomes feedback. Every obstacle becomes an opportunity, which leads us to the next lesson. Because failure is not the end, not unless you decide it is. Chapter 9. Turn setbacks into strength. Nobody succeeds without setbacks. Nobody. Every successful person you admire has failed. Every leader has made mistakes. Every athlete has lost. Every entrepreneur has faced rejection. Every strong person has experienced moments when things didn't go according to plan. That's the key. Failure is not unusual. Failure is part of the process. The problem is that most people misunderstand failure. They see it as proof that they are not good enough. They see it as evidence that they should quit. They see it as the end of the journey. But strong people see it differently. They see failure as feedback. They see setbacks as lessons. They see obstacles as opportunities to improve. That's why they keep growing while others give up. You have a choice. Every setback gives you a choice. You can become bitter, or you can become better. Most people choose bitterness. They complain, they blame, they focus on what went wrong. Strong people choose growth. They ask, what can I learn from this? That question changes everything, because every setback contains information. Every mistake teaches something. Every failure reveals a weakness that can be improved. That's the key. Failure is a teacher, but only if you're willing to learn. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall hundreds of times, yet they never conclude that walking isn't for them. They simply get up and try again. Imagine if adults approached failure with the same attitude. Imagine how much more they could accomplish. The truth is simple. The fear of failure hurts more dreams than failure itself. People avoid taking risks. They avoid opportunities. They avoid growth. Not because failure is guaranteed, because failure is possible. And that fear keeps them stuck. But here's what mentally strong people understand. Failure is temporary. Quitting is permanent. Read that again. Failure is temporary. Quitting is permanent. One bad result doesn't define you. One mistake doesn't define you. One setback doesn't define you. What defines you is your response. That's the key. Strong people get knocked down, but they get back up again and again and again. Not because they enjoy failure, because they refuse to be controlled by it. Every setback becomes fuel. Every disappointment becomes motivation. Every challenge becomes training. That's how resilience is built. Not by avoiding hardship, by surviving hardship. And every hardship you survive increases your confidence. Why? Because you gain evidence. Evidence that you can recover. Evidence that you can adapt. Evidence that you can keep moving forward. That evidence is powerful. Most people underestimate themselves. They think they're weaker than they really are. Then life forces them through a difficult experience, and they discover strength they never knew existed. That's the hidden gift of adversity. Adversity reveals capability. Pressure reveals character. Failure reveals resilience. You don't need their permission. You don't need a perfect record. You don't need a life free from mistakes. You need persistence. That's what matters. Persistence turns setbacks into strength. Persistence turns failure into wisdom. Persistence turns ordinary people into extraordinary people. Look at history. Every major success story contains failure. Every. The difference is that successful people refuse to stop. While others saw a wall, they saw a challenge. While others saw defeat, they saw a lesson. While others quit, they continued. That's the key. You don't become strong because life is easy. You become strong because life is difficult. The struggle creates the strength. The obstacle creates the growth. The setback creates the lesson. Without challenges, there is no transformation. So stop asking, why did this happen? Start asking, what can this teach me? That question turns pain into progress. And progress is always more valuable than perfection. Remember this? The goal is not to avoid setbacks. The goal is to become the type of person who can handle them. Because setbacks are inevitable. Failure is inevitable. Disappointment is inevitable. But growth is also inevitable. If you refuse to quit, that's the choice. Every setback presents two paths. One path leads to excuses. The other leads to growth. One path leads to regret. The other leads to strength. Choose carefully, because every challenge is shaping you. Every obstacle is teaching you. Every failure is preparing you for something greater. That's the key. Nothing is wasted if you learn from it. Nothing is meaningless if it makes you stronger. Nothing can truly defeat you unless you stop moving forward. Remember, every setback contains a lesson. Every lesson contains growth. And every moment of growth makes your mind harder to break. You've learned how to stop waiting for motivation. You've learned how to handle pressure. You've learned how to stay calm. You've learned discipline. You've learned how to embrace discomfort. You've learned how to win small battles. You've learned how to master your inner voice. You've learned how to defeat excuses. And you've learned how to turn setbacks into strength. Now it's time for the final lesson, the lesson that brings everything together. Chapter 10, Become Unbreakable.
Chapter 10. Become Unbreakable. You have come a long way. You learned that motivation is unreliable. You learned that pressure reveals character. You learned to stay calm when life becomes difficult. You learned to make discipline your identity. You learned to embrace discomfort. You learned to win small battles. You learned to control the voice inside your head. You learned to reject excuses. You learned to turn setbacks into strength. Now it's time to bring everything together. Because an unbreakable mind is not built from one lesson. It is built from all of them. That's the key. Most people think mental toughness is something you're born with. They're wrong. Mental toughness is built. Choice by choice. Day by day. Challenge by challenge. Nobody wakes up unbreakable. They become unbreakable through repetition. Every difficult moment is training. Every challenge is practice. Every obstacle is an opportunity. The question is simple. How will you respond? You have a choice, always. Life can make things difficult, but life cannot decide your response. Only you can do that. That's where your power lives, not in circumstances, not in luck, not in other people, in your response. That's the key. An unbreakable person understands a powerful truth. They cannot control everything, but they can control themselves. And self-control changes everything. When others panic, they stay calm. When others quit, they continue. When others complain, they adapt. When others look for excuses, they take responsibility. That is what separates strong minds from weak minds. Not talent, not intelligence, not luck. Discipline, consistency, resilience. Those are the real advantages. The world will test you. That is not a possibility. It is a certainty. There will be setbacks. There will be disappointments. There will be moments when quitting seems easier. Everyone experiences those moments. The difference is what happens next. Weak minds surrender. Strong minds continue. That's the key. Being unbreakable does not mean you never feel fear. It means fear doesn't control you. Being unbreakable does not mean you never struggle. It means struggle doesn't stop you. Being unbreakable does not mean you never fail. It means failure doesn't define you. Read that again. Failure doesn't define you. Fear doesn't control you. Struggle doesn't stop you. That is mental toughness. Many people spend years searching for confidence, but confidence isn't found, it's built. Built every time you keep a promise to yourself. Built every time you do something difficult. Built every time you refuse to quit. That's why confidence and discipline are connected. Discipline creates evidence. Evidence creates belief. Belief creates confidence. And confidence creates action. The cycle continues, day after day, year after year, until the person you once were becomes unrecognizable. That's transformation. Not overnight success, not magic, not motivation. Consistent action. That's the key. You don't need their permission. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You don't need perfect conditions. You need commitment. Commitment to your goals. Commitment to your growth. Commitment to becoming stronger than yesterday. Every day ask yourself one question. What would an unbreakable person do right now? Then do that. No excuses, no negotiations, no delays. Just action. Because action changes lives. Action changes identities. Action changes futures. Most people know what they should do. Very few actually do it. Be different. Be the person who acts. Be the person who follows through. Be the person who keeps moving forward when everyone else stops. Because that person becomes impossible to ignore, and more importantly, impossible to break. Remember everything you've learned. Pressure reveals, discipline builds, discomfort strengthens, excuses weaken, action transforms, failure teaches, consistency wins. Those lessons are not separate. Together they create an unbreakable mind. That's the key.
a mind that doesn't depend on motivation, a mind that doesn't collapse under pressure, a mind that doesn't surrender to fear, a mind that keeps going, no matter what. Because life rewards persistence, life rewards courage, life rewards discipline. Not immediately, but eventually. And eventually is all you need. The strongest people are not the ones who never struggle. The strongest people are the ones who refuse to stop. Be one of them, starting today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. Because every day you delay is another day you postpone your potential. And every day you act is another day you become stronger. You have a choice, the same choice you've had throughout this entire audiobook. Quit or continue. Complain or grow. Wait or act. Weakness or strength. Choose strength. Choose discipline. Choose action. Choose growth. Choose resilience. Choose the version of yourself that refuses to break. Because most people quit under pressure. You won't. Most people surrender when life becomes difficult. You won't. Most people spend their lives waiting. You won't. You will keep moving. You will keep learning. You will keep growing. And day by day, challenge by challenge, choice by choice, you will build a mind that doesn't break.
You've reached the end of this audiobook, but this is not the end of your journey. In fact, it's the beginning, because knowledge alone changes nothing. Listening changes nothing. Understanding changes nothing. Action changes everything. That's the key. Throughout this audiobook, you've learned powerful lessons. You learned that motivation is unreliable. You learned that pressure reveals character. You learned that discipline beats excuses. You learned that discomfort creates growth. You learned that setbacks contain lessons. And most importantly, you learned that mental toughness is built, not born. Now the question becomes, what are you going to do with this information? You have a choice. You can close this audiobook and return to old habits. Or you can decide that today is different. That today is the day you stop waiting. The day you stop making excuses. The day you stop negotiating with your goals. Because the life you want is waiting on the other side of discipline. The stronger version of yourself is waiting on the other side of action. The future you dream about is waiting on the other side of consistency. No one can do the work for you. No one can build your mindset for you. No one can fight your battles for you. That's your responsibility. And that's your power. Remember this: when pressure comes, stay calm. When fear appears, move forward. When excuses speak, ignore them. When setbacks happen, learn from them. And when life gets difficult, keep going. Because most people quit. You won't. Most people break. You won't. Most people wait. You won't. Starting today, you will act. Starting today, you will grow. Starting today, you will build a mind that doesn't break. Now here's your challenge. Within the next 24 hours, do one thing you've been avoiding. One difficult conversation. One important task. One step toward your goal. No excuses, no delays, No negotiations, just action. Because unbreakable minds are not found, they are built. One choice, one action, one day at a time. Now go build yours.